Hey guys, so over the last few days, we've done a lot of talking about solubility, right? So remember, solubility is the ability of a certain substance to dissolve in another. And we also talked about density, where we talked about how things of a lower density seem to rest on the top of things that have a low or a higher density. Okay, so our lower densities are going to be found at the top, higher densities are going to be found at the bottom. And what we're going to do today is we're going to combine both of those concepts to understand why lava lamps work. Okay, so in order to do that, we're going to make our own lava lamp using really just typical household materials. And if you are an online student, this might be something that you're able to do and you're able to follow along. All we'll need is baking soda, vinegar, vegetable oil, but really any type of oil will work, and food coloring. Okay, and then maybe a clear cup or beaker or drinking glass or whatever. Any of those will work. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and move my screen down here a little bit so you'll stop seeing me. Lucky you guys. Okay, down to my beaker right here. Okay, so what I'm gonna start by doing is putting in baking soda to the bottom of this beaker. Bottom of this beaker. And some of you guys may know where I'm already going with this. You may have done this in the past where um, you mix baking soda with vinegar. You've heard me talk about that already today. We have baking soda, we have vinegar. Um, and you get a nice chemical reaction when those two things mix. So that's gonna be at play here. So I have my layer of baking soda at the bottom. What I'm gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna be pretty generous here, and I'm gonna pour in a lot of vegetable oil. And if you remember, that vegetable oil is not gonna mix with our baking soda. Baking soda is non-soluble in vegetable oil. It will not dissolve. Okay, next I'm going to do, I have another beaker, smaller one, and I'm going to fill that beaker up with vinegar. Fill it up with some vinegar, and I'm going to choose a color to make my vinegar. I'm sticking with green today. Um, I tried red earlier. Red looks pretty cool when we did this, but we'll stick with green. Just a few drops is all you need, and we will swirl it around. And I can tell right off the bat here that this food coloring is soluble in vinegar, right? It clearly dissolved, clearly mixed up. Okay, so now I have my two different things I'm going to be mixing here. Okay, so I have my baking soda at the bottom of the vegetable oil, and then I have my green vinegar. And what's going to happen is I'm going to pour this vinegar into the bigger beaker, the larger beaker. And you may know already that when we mix vinegar with baking soda, we get a chemical reaction. And the thing that's produced is carbon dioxide. Okay, and carbon dioxide is a gas. It's a gas that we exhale. We want to get carbon dioxide out of our body, but we're actually going to be making carbon dioxide through this chemical reaction. I want you to notice what's happening once I do this. Okay, so I'm going to try and get this up here. I'm going to pour in a little bit at a time. So notice how the food coloring did not mix with the vegetable oil, but we're starting to get some bubbles coming up here. You can hear some fizzing. And I see some green blobs right at the bottom here. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to try and move it around here. See if we can get it going. All right, and some of these blobs are pretty stinking big, but you're starting to see some of those green blobs move upward. That's because carbon dioxide is being produced at the bottom. I'll move it around here. Carbon dioxide is being produced at the bottom, and that carbon dioxide is less dense than the vegetable oil. So what it wants to do is, since it's less dense, it wants to move up. Okay? Remember, less dense things rest at the top of more dense things. So that carbon dioxide is moving those green bubbles up. And once we get those green bubbles or those green blobs to move up to the top, that carbon dioxide escapes into the air. You may be able to see it in this beaker. I have some vapors coming up. Once that carbon dioxide escapes, there's nothing left to hold those green blobs up, so they start falling back down. And the reason oil is such a nice thing to use here is because it doesn't, because that food coloring is not soluble in the vegetable oil. It doesn't spread out, it doesn't separate, it doesn't mix. So the vegetable oil isn't going to start turning green, right? We're able to see clearly what's happening here. Okay, so really some interesting science going on here. We really have to understand solubility and density to understand what's going on here. And I could just keep this going all day if I wanted to. If I had more vinegar, I could pour more vinegar in. And actually, give me a second. I'm going to come right back. I'm going to get some more vinegar, and we're going to try some red food coloring too. Get some. 1 second. I'll be right back. All right. And this will go on until the baking soda at the bottom is completely reacted with the vinegar. And we have a lot of baking soda left, so this could go on for a long time. And I'm going to go ahead and we'll get the red ones going, okay? It's really like a mesmerizing experiment we're doing here. Okay. So I got my red. I'll move my screen down again so you guys can see and you don't have to keep looking at me. All right. Get it red here. Let's see. I've never tried 2 colors before, so we'll see how this goes. I wonder what's going to happen. So it's starting to look a little purpley. Let's see. Get all this red vinegar in there. So again, just to reiterate, just to summarize, the vinegar is reacting with the baking soda at the bottom, making carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide is less dense than the vegetable oil, so it wants to come up, right? Less dense things rest at the top of more dense things. On its way up, it's bringing the food coloring with it, which is what these little bubbles that you're seeing. The reason those little blobs, those round blobs are forming is because the food coloring is non-soluble in the vegetable oil. Okay, so that goes all the way to the top. Once the carbon dioxide escapes, there's nothing to hold those green blobs and red blobs up, so they sink right back down because they're more dense now than the vegetable oil. And then the process just keeps on going. All right, so I'm just going to let this keep going. I think you guys get the general gist of this, and hopefully this is something you guys can try at home. That would be awesome. So we'll talk to you guys later. All right.